Welcome to the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show. It's a sad day. I almost wore black tonight. I did. We are in mourning here at the Press Row Show. For the first time in years, John Tortorella will not be on the bench for the Flyers, nor will he be in the press box, just hanging out. You know, why coach on the bench when you can hang out in the press box like you did a year or two ago? And well, it's a sad day here. We are truly devastated. At least I am. Anthony is so sad that he didn't even show up to the game tonight. He went all the way down to Washington, D.C. to cover the Phillies Nationals game, which I believe is now tied. Bundy will be here intermission 1, intermission 2, and postgame. There's a man. Bill Meltzer's here. Bill,
Yes.
looking dapper.
Thank you.
I guess we have to get into the news of the day.
Something happened today?
Yeah, so Jet Lushenko is going to report to Lehigh Valley, so that's very big. Oh, no, I guess we'll have to. The other big news of the day, of course, is that John Tortorella was relieved of his duties, is what the press release said. We talked about it this morning on an emergency episode of Snow the Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast. But Bill could break down a lot of things. We could break down the news itself. We can, of course, break down what Danny Briere had to say around 5 o'clock when talking to the media. But go before the Danny chat. Let's just go back to this morning. You're waking up, making yourself a cup of coffee, reading the paper, doing whatever it is that you do in the morning, and the word comes across, John Tortorella has been fired. Your immediate reaction was what?
My immediate reaction was, that explains some things. Originally, Brian Smith and I were supposed to do a prospect podcast today, talking about the Phantoms closing in on clinching a playoff spot, whatnot, right? Just kind of got word, today's not really a good day for a prospect podcast. And I'm thinking like, well, gee, given the team having lost 10 of 11, whatnot, playing Montreal, I thought today'd be a good day for a prospect podcast. And then, that's why. Okay, not a good day for a prospect podcast. No,
Yeah. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, that was the first thing. And then when you thought about it, you say, you lose 10 of 11. They're still in the midst of this losing streak. They got shellacked.
Yeah.
I think shellacked was Danny's word at 5 o'clock. I said drubbed this morning, but a boat racing, if you will. I mean, we can keep going. They got crushed, creamed, pulverized 7-2 in Toronto by former Flyer Scott Lawton and the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Torts post-game the other night had some are calling it he fired himself, saying that he had no interest in learning how to coach a team like this in this situation, which I tried to be a little bit generous with and said he's never really had to go through this kind of thing at the end of a year when it's over and you haven't been in a playoff position. It's not like last year where you kind of flirted with it, and I tried. I really did, because I did not foresee a scenario where they were going to fire this guy. The word for a long time has been going to run out this contract. Maybe he gets another year. Maybe next year he moves up into the front office as an advisor. I had no indication. I don't know about you, but I had gotten no indication over the last year and a half that anything would happen other than John Tortorella remaining with this organization beyond the coaching contract. So I was, quite frankly, shocked this morning when this news came out.
Well, there's some backdrop, though, and I mean in that, like, when John Tortorella was hired here, he talked about what happened in Columbus with him, right? And basically, he wasn't fired. He just coached out his contract and wasn't renewed.
Yeah.
Right? And toward the time, Tortorella said, in hindsight, I thought the Blue Jackets, they probably should have fired me a year earlier. I should have stepped down a year early.
Yep.
Because lame duck situations rarely work. Now, there are exceptions. Barry Trotz won a Stanley Cup that way. But I thought it was coming to a situation this offseason where either you extend him or you let him go.
Yep.
Because a lame duck season benefits nobody. And and Danny did make a point that it wasn't because of age and age won't decide the next coach. And I believe that to be true. On the flip side, the coaches in the league, just like the players, getting younger and younger and younger.
Yeah.
And with John Tortorella being fired. There are now no head coaches left in the NHL who were born in the 1950s. The oldest one is Bundy. Russ was born in '60.
Yeah.
So you can kind of do the math and go, I don't know how much more tenure he's going to have.
Yeah.
Just given the tenure of the league, where things are going.
Yep.
But that being said, I never got an indication internally that the Flyers were thinking of not having him come back for his last year or anything. And Danny Briere said in his press conference that the thought of letting him go right now is really something that's happened in recent weeks. You can read into that how you will.
Well, he even said, I mean, beyond that, when pressed about it at the 5 o'clock media availability, said it. There was something about the comments themselves that he said the other night, and he said, well, I didn't really have a lot of time because this is really kind of picked up in the last few days. So, the weeks for sure. I mean, listen, I don't want to put too much into it, but those post-game comments could not have gone over well, and if nothing else, probably spurred some internal conversations about, like, all right, what are we doing here?
For sure. And you, I mean, if you look at it and you want to give John Tortorella the benefit of the doubt, which I think might be fair in this case, in that he didn't mean it quite how it came out. Yeah. Right? He wasn't saying, I quit on this team, but you have a room where you've already kind of torn the guts out of it. Yep. Where the most galvanizing player in the room has been traded. Where a bunch of guys' buddies have been traded. Yep. You know, so you had a very close-knit room. And
I'd almost argue that the Eric Johnson trade.
Eric Johnson, too.
Especially, it's just a good presence in that locker room.
Yeah, another respected veteran, positive-minded kind of guy, so on and so forth. So you have to think whether he meant to say it or not, or didn't mean to say it that way. How is it going to play in the room? Yes. And I said off the air to Bundy, that's not going to play well in the room because I think you have a bunch of guys who are already not inclined to give him benefits of the doubt, and it might have been intended differently than how it reads on the page, but the players themselves are not going to like it. Right. And I think Bruce Boudreau said too, it's like the players' reaction, this is before the news came, it's going to be like, well, if he doesn't want to learn how to coach us, why do we want to play for him? Yeah. And so how do you reel that in for the final 9 games? And I'll tell you, what I thought was of grave concern to me, not the fact that they lost, because you're playing out the season, and that is what it is. But given what happened late last season, right? I know different situation. Last year they're playing for a playoff spot, and then they lose a bunch of games to teams that they should have beat, right? One of the losses was a drubbing. By Chicago. Yep. Right? Where I don't know if it was after that game or after the game after that, or maybe one game further than that, but after the game against the Islanders where the Flyers lost in overtime, John Tortorella questioned his players' euphemistically guts. Yeah. Right? Then he tried the opposite tactic of, it falls on me. Yeah. Right? I didn't have my team prepared to play. That blame is on me. Well, where did he take the thing in Toronto? That falls on me. I didn't have my team ready to play. Yeah. I feel like you get a mulligan on that once, maybe. You don't get a back-to-back spring. No. So that to me was kind of telling too. I don't think you could take it there. And the other part of it too is like, well, if it falls on you and you didn't have the team ready to play, well, you go to the Dallas and Chicago games. Well, he moved Tippett down to the fourth line. Yeah. Right. He benched Cam York the final 50 minutes of the game. Deserved or undeserved? Yeah. Okay. Yep. But once again, you have to say, how is that going to play with the group in the room? But the group in the room looks at it and goes, well, now we have 5 defensemen for 50 minutes
against a high-powered Toronto team on the road.
Correct. And so your 5th game in however many nights, and you need all hands on deck. Yeah. Do you bench him the rest of the first periods, then send him back out there?
Which he did with Mishkov a couple weeks ago.
Which is done. I thought that just given where the team is at, how fragile the team is, going down to 5 defensemen, and it's not a second guess. I wondered at the time, while I thought that he had earned his seat on the bench, because if you look at the play in question, where the Flyers won a face-off in their own end, that was a very soft play by York. Loses the battle right behind the net, they score.
Yeah.
So certainly that called for something, right? But
the entire rest of the game, though, felt excessive.
Right. Because who are you punishing at that point? Is it punitive of the player, or is it punitive of your entire team?
Correct.
So I thought that was a misstep in of that, and again,
I think there's more to it there too, though.
Yeah.
Right? So like here you are in the midst of this lost end of the season, which Danny, in fairness, admitted during the availability that he foresaw this season going sideways, and that he had always kind of been prepared for that being the case. And that he did say, it's unfortunate that it went the way that it did, but we are in this rebuild, and this is where we're at. So, like, what do you want to see down the stretch in a rebuilding season when all hope of the playoffs is lost? You want to see young guys be given the opportunity to play, in all situations, to get a better read on them, and in fairness, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, to hopefully get some good film, because there could be guys moved in the offseason. So when you bench Cam York for the rest of the game, it's an entire game that you're missing out on, evaluating on your own. He's an RFA coming up. That's going to be a negotiation. There could be other teams. There have been teams that have been interested in Cam York. That doesn't put you in a very advantageous position, when you're trying to negotiate, if in theory you were going to try to trade him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this isn't complicated. Owen Tippett, they gave a ton of money to. It doesn't mean that he gets to play top 6 minutes just because they gave him that contract, but what good is the fourth line for him? Yeah. And again, it's not like you're making these moves to try to galvanize a team or to try to, like, teach them some responsibility as they're getting ready to go into the postseason. You're going to the bottom of the lottery. It doesn't make sense to sit those guys or to put those guys so far down in the lineup. At some point, I think he just wore out his welcome. I think that I said this morning, you come into a job, especially if you're him, with a certain amount of gravitas. You come in with enough equity built up because of the success you've had in the league, right?
Yeah.
This was death by 1,000 cuts. This was, and Danny said it's not just one thing. It wasn't just the post-game comments the other night. I think it's just like the cumulative effect of John Tortorella being here, and surprise, surprise, this happens everywhere that he goes. Eventually, he wears out his welcome, pisses off enough people, and, it doesn't end well.
And I think that to the answer to the question, kind of why now? Well, where do you go for this way the rest of the season? And I asked the last question of the English edition of the press conference.
Oui, oui.
And I said, oui, oui.
Absolument. Qu'est-ce que tu dis?
I've exhausted my French, sorry.
You have the Swedish, though, in that head, though, right? So,
yeah. Lite grann.
Ah, there we go.
No, but the last question, the pressure that I asked was, there's 9 games left, right? How important is it for the guys that are still here to kind of set the example and finish out the season in a way where you can move forward? And Danny said what I thought was the most telling part of the presser that I thought spoke to what his motivation is to do it now. And he said that there's an opportunity for guys, not just the veterans who are leaders, but for guys who have never felt comfortable speaking up.
Yeah.
For guys who, because Tortorella is such a powerful or overbearing, depending on what word you want to use, presence.
Yep.
Right? This is an opportunity for guys who never felt comfortable speaking up to speak up. For guys who've never felt comfortable being the one to grab the initiative. This is their time.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that played a lot into his reasoning. You have 9 games left. What guys will try to take that step? And I think that figured a lot into the reasoning.
Well, he said as well, and I think it kind of goes with it, there was a question about the message to the team in the locker room. And he said, if you're not feeling up to playing, which I can't imagine any of these guys are. I can't imagine there are that many guys broken up over this firing. But look at the guy on your left, look at the guy on your right. Some of these guys are playing for contracts. Some of the guys in this locker room are trying to save their jobs at the NHL level.
And there are guys that are delaying off-season off-season procedures or whatever to play through it and play through their season. So you owe that to the other guys in the room. Yeah, look to your left, look to your right. That I think is a is a big part of it. I think that a big piece of what kept the Flyers together last year, and listen, like the situation with Sean Couturier was
such a stupid thing to do.
I can guarantee you that didn't play well with anyone in that room.
No.
And
Pronger even went on Twitter, 2 weeks ago, and essentially said league-wide, people took notice of it.
Oh,
which also comes back to all right, so if this offseason, if the idea is to try to make a trade, try to get involved in free agency, you weren't going to be able to get some. It's not like there are real marquee free agents this offseason next year. But you weren't going to be able to woo those players with this guy here.
Right.
I mean, unless there was a total about face with the way that he dealt with people even publicly. I mean, it's interesting because there's Torts is a complicated guy, right? Briere said that.
Verbatim, yep.
He is a complicated guy. Front-facing to the public, he's gruff, he's short, kind of a female hygiene product, if you will. But behind the scenes, depending on the player, you heard Eric Johnson last week or something going on a podcast, and he said that Torts was a really caring guy. He was, good guy to kind of deal with. But and again, it's also very different. I don't know if Sean Couturier would have the same thing to say, about. So it varies by person.
Right, and he's also spoken to and about certain players in dehumanizing ways.
Yeah.
I go back to up and down like a toilet seat. You don't say that about somebody.
Yeah.
That guy has a father, right?
Yeah.
How would you say that? How would you react if someone said that about your kid?
Yeah.
Right? If they're playing a sport and he's playing inconsistently, he's been a roller coaster. He's been up and down. Don't compare him to a toilet seat.
Yeah.
That's just not. That's just common sense.
Yep.
In how you deal with people, right?
Yeah.
So I think with John Tortorella, it's very situational as to the level of humanity that he shows. That's just how I feel.
I mean, I've said before, it feels like he treats dogs like people and people like dogs. I don't know. Make of that what you will. The man loves his canines, intern Andrew. He does. Big canine fan. So let's talk about where the team goes forward. I mean, no offense to people who are here for analysis about the Canadiens game, but I don't care right now. I will during intermissions and postgame. But I want to kind of take a look at where we're at right now, playing out these last 9 games. Bradshaw, interim coach, well-respected guy.
Absolutely.
Well-respected for his work with this blue line. A group that is kind of a mess at times, but not. I wouldn't say it's on him. I think he's done a very good job of trying to help a lot of these guys develop. He's been on this show a few times. I would encourage people to go check out on the Snow Goalie YouTube channel when we had him on at the Carnival. Very forthcoming. There's a part of me that when I listen to him talk, it reminds me of Scott Gordon, where there's a thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
And there's a way that Bradshaw seems to acknowledge the modern player. In I'll tell you what, of all the people that we've ever had on the show, from a coaching perspective, I was always the most impressed by Scott Gordon because he was so far ahead of this is where the modern player is trending. They want to know why, not in a disrespectful way, but that's where things are going. So when I listen to Bradshaw talk, I hear the same kind of thing. And it makes me wonder, when you go to hire a head coach in the offseason, it probably won't be Bradshaw, in fairness. I mean, I'm sure they'll have an interview. But he might be a guy that you want to try to keep around. Now, whether or not he wants to do that, whether or not he lands somewhere else, remains to be seen. Is there anything that you would expect him to improve upon, or something that we would expect to see differently with him on the bench versus Torts on the bench?
Well, I mean, he has a whole different style, right? If I have to compare his person, and I think Gordo's the interesting, comparison. I mean, the guy that came to my mind was Craig Ramsey.
Okay.
Because Rammer's very gentlemanly, very cerebral. Mm-hmm. Really, and those are all things that I would use to describe Bradshaw. When you deliver a message as an assistant coach, you deliver it differently as a head coach.
Yeah.
With an assistant coach, you go into more nuance. With the head coach, it's always the 5,000-foot view.
Yeah.
He was briefly an NHL, interim coach before. He's run the bench at times when Tortorella was upstairs or suspended, but so it's not an entirely unfamiliar role. but his style is more like it's a more even keeled style.
Yeah.
You won't see him grimace or groan on the bench if a guy takes a bad penalty, for example.
Yeah.
Right. I think as a guy who played at the top level and has coached an awful long time, you know, I think he has his own communication style. So I would expect less volatility. You know, I mean, the thing is sometimes with Tortorella too is that if he likes a combination or a player, he will give them a lot of rope.
Yeah.
Whereas other guys he'll give almost none to. Now it can reverse.
Yeah.
You can. Bobby Brink's a good example of a guy who a year ago Tortorella absolutely berated on the bench.
Yep.
Walked away, turned around to yell at him again, and then sat on the rest of the game and was very critical, openly in press conferences about about whether this guy's kind of an NHL player at all.
Yep.
Right. And this year, Brink has improved in so many ways, and Tortorella gave him the credit he deserved.
Yep.
Now, that's not always the case with every coach. Sometimes once you're in the doghouse, you're never getting out.
Yep.
So
Morgan Frost was that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever fully got out of the doghouse.
I don't think he ever did. Even when he would lead the team in scoring for half a year, there was still that short leash, and it just is what it was.
He had a bungalow in the Chateau Bow Wow. He actually had his own special wing of the Chateau Bow Wow.
It was kind of a yo-yo thing where he'd be in, he'd be out.
Yeah.
Right? And I think by this season, not so much the first half of last year, I think Farabee got to that point too.
Yeah.
So, is what it is, and every coach is going to have his reads and his opinions on different players. You can agree with it or disagree with it. I do think it's fair that players never had to worry where they stood or wonder where they stood. On the flip side, sometimes players, particularly today's generation, and I've had so many people say this, they always want to know why.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily to challenge, not even to push back, but why.
Yeah.
And Tortorella won't tell you why.
That's what I was saying. That was what the Scott Gordonism. They want to know why. And I mean, it's funny. So it's like, you know where you stand with him.
Right.
The thing that I found increasingly troubling, and this has really been over the last year, but I would say that even more recently, I mean, we heard what Farabee said out in Calgary, right? And there was like this lack of communication. We heard Cam York recently say, lack of communication. Sean Couturier during the benching last year, and even when we had him on the show at the start of the season, lack of communication. It's like, if you're going to bench a guy, if you're going to scratch a guy, if you're, whatever, have the line of communication open and explain the thought process, and
especially your captain, right?
Yeah, and so it's like, do you just believe that you're above having to do that? And it's always where I thought there's just been this big disconnect, where it's like, what are you doing? What are we doing here? And listen, it's an old school mindset, and there's something great about the old school mindset until there's not, I just think that he lost the plot. I think that ultimately Torts just really lost the plot, and I just found the end of the tenure to be kind of wild, and it's not something that you look back on, and I don't think years from now we're gonna look fondly at this season at the end of John Tortorella's Flyers coach. I've seen a lot of people that have been drinking the Torts Kool-Aid for a few years. They've made excuses after excuse after excuse, and they're very upset today. I saw a bunch of people, and this is not like one or two, between the Facebook groups, which are insane, Twitter, which can be insane. I saw people saying, well, John Tortorella's not the one who should get fired. It should be Danny Briere, because what did Danny give Torts to be successful this year? And it's like, I'm sorry, when was Torts sold the bill of goods that this was going to be a contending team this year? Like, when was that articulated?
No, opening night rosters are set in the NHL this year. And I am not saying, I'm putting this up front, I'm not saying that the Flyers were a contender, okay? Because they were, at best, a bubble team.
Yeah.
Okay, at best. But you look at every roster, every NHL roster opening night, what team opened the season with more guys who had been former first-round picks? Nobody. It was the Flyers. Flyers had more first. So, I'm not saying they had overwhelming time. I'm not saying they were, but there was enough there where you could pull enough together to overachieve.
Yep.
So I'm not buying in totally to, we just didn't have any talent around.
Yeah.
There was enough where you could at least kind of hung around the fringes. And they did. I mean, where
the goaltending's been underwhelming. I think that's ultimately what took the season down.
Absolutely. And the goaltending I don't put on him.
No.
Right?
I mean, he admitted he has nothing to do with the goalies, right. In fairness.
And I don't put, I don't put the power play on him.
I put the fact that he wouldn't change it, and it's funny because in the propaganda piece, the multi-part piece with NBC Sports Philadelphia, he said, I'm not going to change the coaches, and I wish they could see how hard he prepares, and if somebody doesn't like it, if Danny doesn't like it, he can handle it. Well, boy, did he handle it.
Yeah.
It's just like...
No, for sure. And I want to say this about Rocky Thompson, because I think his next stop, listen, the writing is on the wall. You have to change power play coaches.
Yeah.
Your next head coach will bring in his own guys. But I think Rocky's next step will be as a head coach, probably like at an AHL level.
Oh, really?
That's always been the word in coaching circles. This guy's a future NHL head coach.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. So, listen, who said about Chief that this guy's a future NHL head coach?
Fair.
Right?
Okay.
Rocky's going to have to take a step back.
Yeah.
Right?
One step back to take 2 steps forward.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I think his next move is a minor league opportunity somewhere, and then try to parlay that. And also sometimes ultimately a guy is a better assistant coach than head coach. Yeah. I think Shaw unfairly gets that rep because he had a very brief tenure as a head coach. I know Craig Ramsey carried that description, but I think it can be the other way around too. I think sometimes a guy could end up being a better head coach than he was assistant. And last thing I'll say, it's fair to criticize Rocky in that he had no answers, right?
Yeah.
Where was the Flyers' power play right before he came here? They're worse in the league.
Yeah. And they've essentially remained
and they've stayed in the same place.
Yeah.
So, it's entirely fair to say that he hasn't had any answers, it hasn't gotten any better. But it has to be also in light of it was terrible before he got here.
I mean, my stance on it's kind of simple, though. Like, one of two things has to be true, or there's a very disastrous third option. But they're over 31, right?
Yeah, they sure are.
Travis Konecny's getting paid a lot of money. Looks like he's playing through something. Have not confirmed that, but looks like he's playing through something. Okay. So Travis Konecny has a lot of money on the table. They paid a lot of money to Owen Tippett. Matvei Mishkov. It is his first season, so I'll show him grace. And he's their best player, or at least their most lethal guy on the power play, likely.
No
Jamie Drysdale, as part of the trade for your best North American prospect, his whole claim to fame was supposed to be able to help the power play. You have pieces that, in theory, are supposed to be able to execute. So I call it one of two. Either the players really stink, which would be horrific given the amount of money guaranteed to them. The coach is putting together a system or a philosophy that just isn't working, or the potentially disastrous third option is both of those things are true. I would like to believe that these players don't stink to the tune of an 0 for 31.
No, for sure. And what I'll add to that, Russ, is, I kept going back to last season, not to this season, right? Well, Seattle had a power play over 20%. What the hell do they have on their roster?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Other teams that were near the bottom were 18%, 16%.
Yep.
Where were the Flyers? My goodness. They're not that bad, or shouldn't
Correct.
be that bad.
They shouldn't be. And yet they are.
Yeah.
It's a weird place they find themselves in. All right. So, Bill, there is something to be said for the belief that a team that fires their coach could get a little bit of a lift. If you had to think about it tonight, do you think it's more likely that the Flyers get a little bit of a lift by the removal of Torts? Do you think that ultimately Montreal still asserts some kind of dominance in this one? Where do you think this one goes tonight?
Won't be 7-2, but I think 4-1 Montreal.
4-1 Montreal. You don't think that there's going to be the new coach bump?
So you have to stop guys like Suzuki.
You got. I was just going to say, if you got to stop the first line, because their first line can win the game tonight. Yeah, their first line is loaded.
All right, so
you want me to my pick?
Yeah, go ahead.
That being said, 4-2 Flyers.
Ah, look at him!
I'm going for it tonight, baby. I need to make up some points.
So I've gone back and forth all day because I really do believe that the new coach bump is real. But the goalies are still a disaster. There is a scenario here where the Flyers do the ultimate Flyers and they screw this up and they go on a little run, cost themselves draft. I think that they have a good chance of keeping this one close, but I'm going to go with my gut here. My gut says Montreal wins 3-2 in overtime. I think it'll be a close one. Intern Andrew?
I will take the Flyers 4-3.
And to get the record straight, Anthony believes in the bump tonight as well. 4-3 Flyers is Anthony's pick from the nation's capital. We will be back, first intermission, second intermission, and post-game. As we, again, Bundy, I said, we forgot to wear black tonight, but we are in mourning as a show. I hope that you'll all come back for the intermissions and post-game. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Thank you to Bill Meltzer.
The great Bill Meltzer.
And we will talk to all of you very soon here on the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show. Talk to all of you very, very soon. sure does. Welcome into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show. My friends, the Philadelphia Flyers, I said Bundy pregame. I know you weren't here for this part of it, but we are in mourning tonight at the departure, the relieving of the duties of one John Tortorella. The Flyers actually wore black to the funeral tonight, and they look like a team that is weighed down by the decision that was made. They just don't. Oh wait, the boys are buzzing, Bundy. 3-1 lead after one.
Boys are
what
buzzing.
the hell's going on out there? The Bradshaw bump.
The really great first period. I mean, the Flyers look like a team that had a weight lifted off them. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they look like they're just going out and playing. And the thing is, too, it's not a shot at Torts, because Torts will have instilled things in them that they're going to carry with them for the rest of their careers. So I think it's kind of cool that they're playing in the same kind of way that Torts had taught them to play structurally, but they feel like at the same time they don't have that anchor kind of towing them down a little bit. I think that's what it was. They had a really, really strong first period.
There's intern. We just had a guy walking by, and he very nicely pointed out that the banner fell. You know why? Do you know who didn't put the banner up today? Me.
Andrew, you did.
Yeah, you know who put it up? This guy. How many pieces of tape did he do?
No, just one.
He put 3 pieces. I do 5. I taught him. Corner, middle, in. Yeah, you got to do 5.
You know what it is? It's young.
You did 3. What the hell?
It's young laziness in the society
Where's the roll of tape?
I was pressed for time.
No, you weren't.
Where's
the roll of tape?
Well, you see what happened, though? Because you were pressed for time and didn't do it right, our apron fell.
Okay.
That's right.
I mean, the people watching this can't see it anyway.
The people walking by can, and they pull out their phones and they scan the QR code and they subscribe to the podcast.
Okay.
And, subscribe on YouTube.
I fixed it.
Jeez. The intern. You know what?
I don't like it. It's going to come down again.
Do we send him out, too? Do you think Torts has the engine running? Can we send him off to retirement or what? No?
I wore black.
You did. Are you devastated tonight?
Yo, I cried myself to sleep.
I'm glad to hear
it was this morning, so never mind.
I'm glad to hear that you cried yourself to sleep. That's what it's all about. All right, we'll talk to you in a minute.
Okay.
So, Bundy, I think you and I agreed pregame. We didn't say it on the show, but we looked at each other as the puck dropped, and we're like, multi-point night for Sean Couturier incoming. And it happened in the first
They looked, the Flyers looked good. I mean, they really did. They Mishkov with 2 goals. He almost had his 3rd. I have a feeling he's going to get a hat trick. There's going to be a celebration tonight on the ice. There will be hats on the ice tonight.
He only has 1. Remember the one deflected off of Coots?
Oh, they called it Mishkov on the ice, though. Did they change it already?
I thought they did.
No, they didn't. I think he's got.
I have it right now. It's Michkov.
Really?
So, 2 goals.
So both are.
Yeah.
I thought the one hit Couturier's stick. Am I nuts?
So, right after the goal happened, I opened up the ESPN app, and it had it given to Couturier. And just a second ago, I looked again, and they awarded it to Michkov now, so he has 2.
So they changed it.
I think they changed it twice.
So he's got 2.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
He's been buzzing.
I stand corrected. I thought that it went off of Coots. Okay, so potential hat trick in play.
As of right now, Michkov is at 2.
Which then means that Couturier is only at 1 point. Is that correct? Because the Delorier goal. Boy, did anybody have Nick Delorier scoring a goal tonight on their bingo block? I did not.
What a beauty of a goal that was.
Yeah, so Couturier's got 1 point.
Couturier's, all right, so now I have to backtrack a ton. So not only does Sean Couturier not have a multi-point game yet, but Mishkov, 2 goals, sitting on a potential hat trick.
You will. I think you'll see the hats in celebration tonight. I have a feeling about it.
Can I ask a question? Do you ever, when I come into the arena and I'm walking around to the elevator that's right over here that people can take to come up and say hi, the wall that has all the hats on it, people go and they take pictures with the hats from the hat tricks.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of weird. Am I crazy?
I don't know. I
think there are a lot of things to take a picture with here, but the hats, I don't know about the hats.
I think if you were at the game, though, like if you were there and you remember the hat trick night, you gave your hat, it's pretty cool to look at the thing. So for memorability,
if you see
one of your hats, or you remember, you're like, hey, remember the night we saw Kevin Hayes get a hat trick? Because there is a Kevin Hayes hat trick one down there.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to myself, I just picked his because that's the only one I remembered. But remember
John Tortorella's fingerprints are all over it, too. No?
Yeah, that's another thing, too. Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that stays with a guy.
Yeah, it never really did, though, did it?
You know what? No, well, I think stripping the A probably did some, but you know what? Let's be fair here. I mean, we are after all.
That silly podcast.
Now, I think now's a good time to bring the intern back on because it is time for Stat of the Night. A reminder to those of you who are wondering where SanFilippo is. He found out about the Torts firing this morning. He was very sad, and so he decided to go cover opening day down in D.C. Phillies blew a lead, but then they ended up winning. Alec Boehm, how about us splitting the gap out there? 7-3 win down in D.C. So anyway, intern, let's bring you back on. How are you feeling tonight?
I feel very good.
Okay.
Feel good. That was the most buzzing that the Flyers have been in a period that I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
So that's good. It's always good when they're playing good hockey here. All right, so stat. Matvei Michkov, 2 goals tentatively as of right now. Might just be 1, but I think it's 2 still. His 22nd goal of the season now, which puts him ahead of Celebrini, actually, for most goals by a rookie this season. And it's also the most goals by a rookie since Matt Reed had 24 in the 11-12 season.
Yeah.
He's also now, with those 2 points, sole possession for 10th place on the Flyers' all-time points by a rookie. He passed Ron Sutter and Serge Bernier.
So there are 9 Flyers rookies in history that have more points?
Yeah.
Do you have the list in front of you? Because we could turn it into trivia a little bit.
I'll get it for you.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
The 9, all right, so...
Well, I know Renberg's one. Lindros is another.
I think Renberg and Lindros are 1 and 2.
Gagne? Was Gagne one of them or no?
Hold up.
No, I think he beat Gagne, didn't he?
He passed Gagne on the
So
goal
it's
scoring, but I
points.
thought Gagne on points maybe.
No, he's ahead of Gagne in points.
Really?
Yes.
So, all right, Renberg, Lindros.
Renberg 1, Lindros 3.
Was Ghost on there?
No.
Well, Bob Clark,
Nope.
Reggie Leach, Bill Barber.
Bill Barber's number 7. Reggie Leach is not on there.
Richards or Carter on there?
Nope.
Wow. Was Umberger? Did Umberger do well
No,
as a
he
rookie?
wouldn't
No.
he wouldn't have been on that.
Umberger.
Umberger had 20 goals his rookie year.
Yeah. Are any of the players recent?
Rick Tocchet.
No.
None of them are recent.
No, none of them. No, the most recent one was Renberg, actually.
Oh, geez. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'm probably slightly screwed.
Let me just rattle them off.
Yeah, rattle them off. Go ahead.
Number 2, Dave Poulin.
Oh,
4, Brian Propp. 5, Ron Flockhart. 6, Pelly Eklund. Oh, I just closed it. 8, Peter Zezel. And 9, Andre Lacroix.
Oh, okay.
the Poulin one made sense. And Prop. Yeah. I'm embarrassed for not knowing those. Also, friends of the program. They've been on the show before.
Is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
Way back when. I think it was during COVID. When the world was shut down and we were doing interviews like during the summer. I want to say Poulin did his, I think he lives out in California, I want to say. And he did the interview from like poolside out in California, I'm pretty sure. I have to go back and look, and I don't know if we ever put that video out. I'd have to see if we still have the video somewhere, because we switched like recording sites or whatever at some point between COVID and now. So that video might be lost forever, but if we have it, it was really great. I mean, it was a great backdrop, but okay, that was a nice stat. You have good trivia for later?
I think this is very good.
The trivia is very good?
I think so.
Guys, you know what? I didn't notice it, but was York still benched that period? What's his time on ice that period? Cam York. I didn't notice him out there. And some of the fans have asked us if we could kind of touch upon it.
I'll get it. Give me a second.
He's at 0 minutes and 0 seconds time on ice.
No, that can't be right.
That's what it says.
Is he dead?
Is he playing?
I don't know that he's deceased.
Is he wounded?
I mean, everyone else's stats are updated. I don't know why it wouldn't be his.
Hold on.
I don't remember seeing him.
Give me a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, only 5 defensemen took the ice in the period.
Was that like Torts' like last wish on his way out the door? Don't let York play.
So Sanheim had 11 minutes and 34 seconds played.
By the way,
Sealer 8:53, Drysdale 7:35, Zamula 6:56, Emil Andre 5:17.
it is sometimes a lot easier for you guys at home watching on your TVs to notice than sometimes watching live.
Yeah.
We get caught up here over the perch of the balcony looking at an overhead, and it is really, really hard to pick guys apart that are on or not on the ice because you're just watching the generic play.
And especially with the black jerseys where the numbers don't pop, the names don't pop.
Trust me, if you're up here in our spot, it wouldn't be as obvious as you think it is. As a matter of fact, when I used to do the radio and TV, when I was on the full broadcast, There was probably 5 times in my career where we missed a goalie being pulled 8 or 9 minutes into a period.
Really?
Yeah, all of us, all broadcasters, Jonesy, me, Tim Saunders, and it just happens sometimes. You don't pick it up and your producer doesn't get it either.
You don't have like spotters that like give that to you?
Your producer's supposed to help you, but if you're in the nets and you're just focused on what's going on and you're not expecting a goalie pull and you're not thinking about it, you don't say anything, and then all of a sudden it's like you're 8 minutes in, you're like, oh my God, Nitty's in, or the other goalie, and you're like, what? How did we not see that? It happens, believe me, it's crazy.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, and it's usually from the group that's watching from the overhead angle that has the hardest time seeing who is and who is not on the ice.
We'll have to find out. Might have to do a little bit of digging around during the period to find out what happened there with York not playing.
Well, we'll see if he's on the bench.
Yeah, well, he was. So, I mean, can't be what disciplinary thing would you have to, what could have happened?
Why would they dress him if they weren't planning on playing?
Who is the 7th D tonight? Who's in the box? I didn't see the game day roster when we were getting ready to go.
Yeah, it's not something we usually have to deal with. We usually get 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, and 2 goalies that we deal with. So,
could they put Alexei Kolosov in as
we will try. We
defense?
will try to get answers for you and either get them this break or get them at the next intermission. But we'll try to get that.
That's
we'll get
wild.
that info for you.
Unless he's hurt and they just dressed him so that they could field a full team, but that's just odd. All right, we'll have to look.
Maybe they don't have another one on the roster because we're still
I
on.
was just going on to ask Bill Meltzer.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting question. All right. I mean, do you want to handle that, or do you want me to fire the message
I'm
off?
going to try to figure out what's going on because there's a lot of people up here.
It says the Flyers' 3 scratchers are Ristolainen, Garnet Hathaway, and Alexei Kolosov. And Ristolainen's hurt, so I guess they
they burned a call up on Kolosov, so that, I mean, they could technically do an emergency call up, I guess, if there's an actual injury.
Yeah, you can put Bundy out there.
Huh?
You can put Bundy out there.
Put Bundy out there on skates.
But there'd be 2 number 6s.
Yeah, just so you guys are clear and understanding of this, when a player is hurt, they will never keep that player on a bench to not play. They don't want the player there. They want him out of the way. They want him in the press box, in the locker room, but not on the bench. And that is a sacred cow.
If you don't have
stat.
if you don't
There's
have 6 healthy defensemen, though, then what do you do?
Then get off the bench. If you can't play and you're no good on the ice, then get off the bench. Go to the press box or go to the locker room, but you can't be on the bench.
Are you by rule allowed to only dress 5 defensemen?
Well, you can dress whatever you want, but that's not ideal. You want to have an extra backup defenseman if there's a guy hurt.
Sure.
They've had all day to get a guy called up, but I'm not saying that's the case. I'm trying to find out what's going on, and I'm going to try to dig into it this period.
So this is pretty interesting from Bob Wright. Per Adam Kimmelman, Torts has repeatedly said when he was coach, Brad Shaw was in charge of pairing and ice time. So I guess it is his call the whole time.
I guess we'll find out. We'll have to do a little bit of digging.
This is an interesting subplot to
we might have to go have a conversation over near the press box and try to find out what's going on there. Don't worry, the intrepid reporting doesn't just live and die with Anthony SanFilippo. We'll do some digging.
We would have had Anthony here, but he was wearing his Phillies uniform down to the Phillies game today to cover it. So,
the rumor is that he tried to wear the Bryce Harper jersey into the press box, and they told him, nah. I'm just kidding. That's not true. Now, does he have fanatic fuzzy slippers that he wears to bed? Only Maria would know.
Is Anthony? He can't be staying overnight. They don't play tomorrow.
They don't. They play Saturday. I think I'm probably going to be gone Saturday, taking the family down there.
Down to D.C.?
Yeah.
That's nice.
That's a good
well, there's the cherry blossoms. That's happening. My wife, for whatever reason, was like, the cherry blossoms. I was like, okay.
Yeah, go look at pictures on the internet.
Yeah, but you know what we did, though? We took the kids to Nationals Park 2 years ago. Great game. We didn't intend on going. We were going down for the National Mall. Didn't realize the Phillies were playing in D.C. Got tickets. Sat in the lower level. It was unbelievably hot, like unfathomably hot. My wife ended up like almost passing out. And that was like when we had a 5-month-old baby plus the other 3. Yeah. We got in the car. We started driving away. Phillies were losing. Phillies go on to score like 10 runs over like the next 2 or 3 innings. Won the game in a blowout. We count that as a win, though.
Yes.
We do. We count that as a win as a family. So, anyway. Intern.
Yes.
I look forward to hearing your trivia. We'll do that second intermission. Godspeed.
Okay.
Bundy.
Yeah.
The Flyers.
Yes.
Have a rare 2-goal lead going into the second period. And so I ask you, what do the Flyers need to do in the second period to maintain that momentum, if not to even build upon it, and maybe build out this lead. Because remember, Montreal, good team. You mentioned top line that could theoretically win the game for the Canadiens themselves. What do the Flyers need to do? Is it just as simple as shutting down that first line?
They've done a good job on Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slavkovsky. There's no doubt about that. But they have to continue doing it and continue pushing the envelope forward offensively. I think the Flyers have had one of their best periods overall in the last month. And they've capitalized. They've scored some goals. They've made plays to the front of the net. They put pucks to the net. It was a perfect first period. Montreal now, though, is they're going to try to open things up a little bit. The Flyers cannot get into a run-and-gun type of game where you're playing a game of, as I call it, shinny hockey, where you're going back and forth. You don't want to trade chances with them. So continue with the defensive structure. Keep putting pucks back into the offensive zone. Montreal doesn't look like they are on their A game tonight. Philadelphia should know that by this point, but continue pushing, and you get out of here with a win tonight. Be a big win, too, against a team that's desperate for points.
I'm just trying to look really quick across Twitter, and a bunch of the people that you would expect to see talking about the Cam York situation over in the press box, they're all befuddled. This is a weird story. All right, we are going to have to look into it. Something is amiss. Has he been traded? I'm kidding.
Didn't happen.
It's weird. Something is up. Intern, I want you to go down to the bench during the second period. I want you to go ask Brad Shaw. Remind him that he's a friend of the program.
Got it, yeah.
I would actually encourage people, if you're looking to something to listen to during the second period, you go to the Snow the Goalie YouTube channel, and in the clips playlist, there's the interview with Brad Shaw from the Carnival. You get to learn a lot about the guy and a lot of what makes him tick as a coach.
Okay, yeah, I like Brad Shaw. He's been very good to us.
Good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He gave us a lot of good stuff when he came on our show at the Carnival, and yeah, he's a good man and well respected by the players that play for him. So give him an opportunity for these 9 games to try to get his head above water as they make a decision-making process. We're looking for a coach in the summer, but certainly he's had a good start to his Flyers 9-game stint. There's no doubt about it.
He's back on the bench.
He's on the bench.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see if he plays this period. We will talk to all of you second intermission and post-game here on the Press Row Show. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, and subscribe, and we will talk to each and every one of you during second intermission here on the Press Row Show.
That silly podcast. That silly podcast.
Welcome into the Press Row Show, the number one rated pregame intermission to postgame show. Friends, it's still 3-1. Montreal nearly scored there on the power play late in the second period. We have a little bit of drama going on right now. The I know they released the JFK files. The Zapruder film right now. We had Greg from Vineland over on Twitter send us a picture from his seat of Cam York looking real pissed. Now, in fairness, one hand was over the boards and the other one wasn't. It was almost like Ant doing the stick taps the other day.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of questions going on about Cam York. There's speculation running rampant. Is he a healthy scratch, but they only have 6 defensemen on the roster currently, and, Risto was scratched, so are they effectively healthy scratching York, but they dressed him? He's sitting on the bench. Is there an injury? Based on the body language, based on the pissed off look on his face, methinks it's likely more disciplinary. The Flyers PR has confirmed to Snow the goalie that the situation will be addressed post-game by Brad Shaw, which means that post-game, when media ask about what happened, it's very unlikely that Brad Shaw's answer is
silly podcast.
So we're not
answering your questions.
Not answering your questions. I actually think that Brad Shaw should take a page out of John Tortorella's playbook, Bundy. I don't think he should answer any questions. I think he should send Rocky Thompson out to answer the questions post-game. That's like a pay and homage kind of thing.
All I can tell you about injured players being on the bench is it never happens. Now, I don't know you have to have 18 healthy skaters dressed, but there's been times in cap crunches where teams were not able to field the full lineup because of cap situation. So they had like 16 skaters, 2 goalies. And that's happened before. But again, to have a guy on the bench that's not hurt, sitting there as a scratch is something you don't see very often from the beginning of the game on.
And I don't remember there being anything pregame that said, like, he wasn't skating with the team, right? Like, because usually that'd be one of the things that a lot of the folks at Press Row would notice right away is that, like, York isn't participating in pregame warm-ups. So since that didn't happen, and since he hasn't now played through 2 periods, again, like, I think it's probably safe to assume. You don't want to assume, make an ass out of you and me, but, like, more likely than not, this is a disciplinary scratch. It's not injury-related, would be my guess.
That would be the guess, but could be just because guys that are hurt don't sit on the benches. They don't want them around the team. That's like universal with coaches. It doesn't matter if you're a star player or not. If you're injured, get away from the bench, get away from the team until you're healthy to resume playing with them. That's the way it goes.
It's a pretty wild situation, too, because, like, you look at how things kind of ended here with Torts and York. It didn't go particularly well, and York was very outspoken earlier this week, or was it over last weekend, about the lack of communication with the head coach, and so you kind of wondered if there'd be a disciplinary thing for speaking out like that, and then he played. It was 9 minutes into the period. A game ago, he gets benched for the rest of the game, and now he presumably won't play this entire game. Hasn't played through the first 2 periods. It makes it like going back to your playing days. What could lead to a guy being a healthy scratch for disciplinary reasons? Could that be missing a meeting? Like what usually would constitute not playing?
I don't even want to speculate.
No, I'm not saying about him. I'm just saying in your playing days, like what would be?
I've never seen a guy get scratched like in a game where he sat on the bench as a healthy scratch for disciplinary reasons.
Yeah,
it would be usually you're up in the press box.
What would lead to a guy getting sent?
I don't remember a lot of disciplinary situations where a guy did something grave. I remember we've had a couple situations. I mean, there's been. You play as long as I did, you're going to see some stuff in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have seen some stuff, but not stuff that I'm privy to share or would share. So,
sure.
I don't know what could have happened. I really don't. If it's something that stemmed from the game, the scratching the other night at the game, that if something went overboard. Again, I am speculating. I don't want to do that. So
yeah.
I'd rather find out later on tonight or tomorrow what exactly has gone on, so we have some semblance of sanity here and clarity of what's gone on.
In fairness, again, for those who might have missed it, Flyers PR tells Snow the goalie it will be addressed post-game. So it shouldn't be waiting until tomorrow morning. It shouldn't be kind of hovering over the team. They're going to address it. I've seen some people speculating that there's a potential cap reason, but I can't fathom that would be the reason for it because he's dressed.
Well, then they had the lineup the other night, right? That was the same lineup the other night.
Yeah.
So they were fine in Toronto. There was no cap issues.
Yeah. So I don't think it's that. We'll find out. We'll do a little bit more. We'll do a little bit more checking in, and I'm sure once postgame happens, we'll have a better idea. But let's move on from the Cam York of it all, and let's talk about the game at hand. Flyers maintained the 2-goal lead, Bundy. As I mentioned, at the end of the second period, there was a near goal. I think did it hit the crossbar? It's hard to see from up here, but definitely had Ersson beat in net. Clangs back out.
Yes.
And there's like 10 seconds left in the period. Montreal get, I think, one more shot at or near the goal to end the period. But 2-goal lead is probably the most tenuous in hockey. What do the Flyers have to do to prevent that from going sideways on them in the third?
Just keep playing the way they are. Montreal can score in bunches, and they can score quick. So the Flyers have to kill off the remainder of this power play. I think there's a little bit of time left, maybe 30 seconds, and then get back to work again 5-on-5. So I think they've done a good job in this hockey game, really pushing pucks up the ice. Montreal's had some opportunities, but they've been perimeter chances, and I'm fine with that. If you want to shoot from the perimeter, try to make plays from the outside, go for it, because the Flyers have clogged up the middle very, very well in this hockey game tonight. One thing you can do, stay out of the box. Don't give Montreal those opportunities on the power play. That'll be a good start to the third. Get out of the box and don't go back. But if I'm the Flyers, I keep playing the way I'm playing. They've had really one of their better games in probably over a month.
Yeah, for sure. They might actually break this. They might snap the skid again. We were joking about the 10-game losing streak. It's an annual tradition. It almost happened. Then they broke the streak. Now they're on another negative losing streak. And then potentially it's going to maybe end. If this continues, Flyers maybe get a win in the Bradshaw bump game. Now, something that's a little bumpy around here occasionally is trivia time, because trivia time with intern Andrew can occasionally devolve into chaos, where he reveals that he didn't know that the Flyers drafted Peter Forsberg. And so be careful.
I mean, that happened one time.
Well,
that was a pretty big one.
No, I know. That's fine.
So, intern, you said...
We all have our crosses to bear.
It's all right.
You said during first intermission, you say that the trivia time was going to be a very good one.
I think it will
I
be.
think he said very strong, right? Didn't he say he said very good or very strong?
I don't think I said very
He set the bar. He set the bar high. What are you looking at? Oh yeah. You go ahead. Let's hear the trivia.
So tonight is the first game that Bradshaw has been.
Hold on, pause. I see Mike Butts over there, and he's got the Flyers jersey with the Phillies jersey over top and the Phillies cap on top,
and an orange an orange sweatshirt under all of it.
So he's like decked out for opening day for the Phillies, but also supporting the Flyers.
A big win tonight, eh, Mike? Big win by the Phillies today.
Big win, big win. He's on like that 6-second delay. He can't hear us now, but he's listening on the phone. Now the question I have is Mike going to lead an EAGLES Eagles chant in the third period? That's really what I need to know. We'll find out here in about 5-6 seconds. Will he start an Eagles chant? He says no. He's shaking the head no. All right, let's go over to intern. Intern, you have trivia time. Go ahead.
So tonight is the first game that Bradshaw has been the head coach in 18 years. He had one other stint as an NHL head coach, again in an interim situation, 40 games in the 05-06 season. What was the team and who did he replace?
Yeah, it was the New York Islanders.
You knew that?
I did.
So who did he replace?
I don't know who he replaced.
Okay.
What was the year?
05-06.
With the Islanders.
Yeah, I don't know who their coach was then. Mike Milbury. No,
he was GM.
He was a GM then?
Yeah.
Was it a former player turned coach?
I don't think he ever played, actually. He was only the Islanders coach for like a year and a half. But you would have played against him.
He would have played against what?
Oh,
you would have played against the coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 05-06. That was my last year. Yeah. I don't know who the coach was. I could sit here and try to guess it, but I can't.
Give us some initials.
SS. It's kind of canceled, but
I still
Du
can't.
kannst das nicht sagen.
Steve.
Was it a Steve?
Steve.
yeah.
Steve Spagnuolo, man. I love a good defensive coordinator, man. We're talking about a guy.
Steve.
What's the nationality of the last name?
I'm pretty sure he's Canadian.
That's not a very helpful hint.
I think he currently works as a scout for the
Steve
Senators.
Syrup? Steve
No.
Syrup?
No.
Steve Stales.
No.
Steve Santos.
No, don't say Stamkos next.
Well, we got Steve.
Steve Mason. The S is silent. Sterling.
Yes.
I saw it in the
I
chat.
had a feeling.
I'm willing to admit Bob Kelly got it there. Steve Sterling.
So the funny thing is, the last game that he ever coached was against the Flyers.
Steve Sterling.
Yeah. No,
Really?
no, Brad Shaw.
Donald Sterling?
No, Brad Shaw.
Ah, Brad Shaw.
Yeah.
So his last, all right, so Brad Shaw, when he coached with the Islanders, his last game as the head coach was against the Flyers.
Was a 4-1 loss to the Flyers.
Wow. How about that? Who scored the goals in the game?
I don't know.
That's okay.
I had the box score up again to see if Bundy played in the game, but he didn't.
I'm not saying that was an underwhelming trivia time, but I thought there was going to be like a multi-layered.
I thought that was an interesting thing.
Well, he was, of course, going to know what team it was.
But he didn't know the coach.
I didn't know the coach. I know Steve Sterling is. I've heard his name and
Yeah.
remember him, but I don't remember his coaching stint with the New York Islanders.
I don't remember his coaching stint there.
I didn't know that he coached the Islanders.
You know, you mentioned,
I learned something.
You mentioned it was his first game coaching in 18 years. I'm going to give you a rap lyric, and you have to tell me who did. Who did the rap?
18 years.
Let's see if you could get it.
It's Gold Digger.
18 years got you for one of them kids. Got you for 18 years.
And on the
I couldn't have done that more as
on
a.
the 18th birthday, he found out it wasn't his.
You should see him on
Kanye,
Sunday,
isn't it?
any given Sunday. Yeah.
It's Kanye.
Yeah, can't talk about him now. That was back before he went totally loopy.
It was, yeah. Back when Kanye was still Kanye.
When his mom was still alive. That wrecked the guy.
I think he's just one of those people who was never meant to be famous. He just didn't have it brain capacity to be famous.
Maybe we should get him and Torts together.
Ooh.
Torts and Kanye.
I would listen to that podcast.
Torts is going to straighten out Kanye. What if Torts became like a life coach? A life coach to the celebrities.
Well, if you make a mistake, he would just bench you.
Exactly.
He would bench you in life.
He's going to bench Kanye from being able to tweet. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
That's actually
there
not
are
a bad
certainly worse ideas.
That's a good point.
Who are some people that need to get benched in real life?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, there's a lot.
All right, let's go through it. People who could get let's make the fantasy lineup. John Tortorella benching people.
I'm just thinking of like awful TV that I watch.
Okay.
Like shows that are just so brutal that you can't. Like I'm just talking channel flipping stuff. Like The View.
I was actually just about to say that, and then I didn't because I was.
Joy Behar.
I thought you were going to be afraid
Joy
to say.
Behar.
The View.
And,
That is just that's painful TV.
Joy Behar and Kanye are two.
And Whoopi Goldberg.
2 of the 5. Whoopi gets benched too. All right, so that's 3 of the 5.
If we're going down that road, I think Jimmy Kimmel needs to be benched.
Jimmy Kimmel gets benched.
Yes.
Wow.
He stinks.
Does Stephen A. Smith or LeBron James get benched after their back and forth?
Do they have a little back and forth?
You don't know about the Stephen A. and the
I
LeBron?
don't pay attention to the
I'll
NBA,
educate you on it in
man.
between or during the period.
I can't pay.
Oh,
watch
here.
that.
Well, K-Dub 1323 says Rachel Zegler.
That movie.
The
is
Snow White.
That movie is tanking.
1.7 on. It was a 1.7 on IMDb.
Anytime you use those like CGI dwarves, you're in big trouble.
So bad. By the way, there's have you seen the video? Did I send you the video of the comments on
Yes.
the trailer?
Yes.
And one of them is on the Snow White trailer. It said something like, "If I saw this movie on a plane, I'd still walk out." People are creative, man. All right. Anyway, maybe somebody out there. Did anybody see the Snow White movie? Let us know what you think in the comments. You know,
610.
not that Snow White. 610. All right. Steven says bench Ant for missing tonight's show. There, Ant can be the final member of the.
Phillies was an important get today for Ant. It's not just him covering it; it's him rooting on a team that he is passionate and loves very much.
That's
There's
really
nothing wrong with that.
That was a
relate
sweet
to
thing.
that.
That was a
nice
sweet
thing
thing
to
you had
say,
to say.
right?
That was
Yeah.
nice. You can go read Ant's write-up. I believe it's done over on Pattison. You know, give the guy a plug.
Yeah.
Clearly, that means that he's not the AP writer for tonight.
Did he drive down and he's driving right back after?
I think so. I'm pretty
like
sure.
A 2-hour, 40
Unless he's
minute
scouting
pull
out
down.
the Phillies hotel to, meet a couple of the guys in the lobby. You know.
Yeah. Have a couple suds.
Casty and boys.
Yeah.
Casty, who else?
Regale.
Schwarbaum.
He's going to go regale them with stories of the lockout and covering the Phantoms and the Anthony SanFilippo
Our
fan club.
intern didn't know Peter Forsberg was drafted by the Flyers. Can you believe that, Alec Boehm?
All right, well, what a mess. This is an absolute, we've gone off the rails, and
You going to see Snow White with the kids?
am I? No.
No?
No.
You want bring Big Dino to that?
I got to tell you, no, Big Dino doesn't care. I got to tell you, when Moana 2 was getting kind of panned in the reviews, I said to the kids, all right, we're not going to go see Moana 2 in theaters. We'll wait till it comes to Disney+. I think it's an okay movie. I don't think it's like it's not as good as the first one, but I don't think it was quite as bad as the reviews made it sound. But the kids enjoy it. The Snow White, I don't even know if my kids have seen the original Snow White.
I haven't seen it in forever.
They don't want to sit for the
classic,
old.
right?
They don't want to sit for the old cartoons.
It's a cartoon
Snow White,
one,
Cinderella,
right?
yeah, Cinderella, and like they just. Even my daughter, she's just not big into the old cartoon ones. You know, I think it's this generation.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Real fast, can I ask a question, Bundy?
Yes.
My friends wanted me to run this by you.
Yeah.
So tonight is the first round of the NCAA hockey tournament, and apparently they've changed the name of overtime from sudden death to sudden victory.
What?
And I think a lot of people are saying that's a little lame. Are you?
Who changed that? The NCAA hockey?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just stupid. It's sudden death. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
It's sudden victory overtime now.
Somebody went woke and decided they wanted to change it to sudden victory.
We're
instead
gonna
of sudden
call it
death.
sudden victory, folks. You can't have sudden death because there's no guarantee anyone's gonna die.
What's the difference?
You can't. Excuse me. You can't guarantee death, Bundy, unless there's a firing line for the losing team. There's a handshake line. No sudden death. Sudden victory.
It
I hate
offended
that.
somebody, and
That
somebody's
upsets
had
me.
to change it. So whatever.
That actually does upset me.
Sudden death overtime.
Yeah.
You don't call sudden victory overtime.
Yeah, I think it's a little silly.
That's largely upsetting.
Perfect segue, by the way. Penn State versus Maine in Allentown tomorrow night. I will be there. So.
Who's Providence? Providence is playing tonight, I think, in New Hampshire. I think that's my college. So
Yeah.
you got to score that game.
Let me see.
You got to be quick.
I thought
otherwise-
the intern was going to be watching Sweet 16, but not so much. I guess it's because Penn State's not in it.
Providence, they play tomorrow at 5:30 against
Tomorrow.
Denver.
Against who?
Denver.
Denver. Okay.
There we go. All right, we will be back post-game here on the Press Row Show. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. We'll talk to you post-game. See if the Flyers can hang on to the 2-goal lead here on
That silly podcast.
Goalie! Allez, presse Rochon, les habitants de Montréal! They lose Bundy. The Flyers win.
The Flyers win. It was
Flyers
a good,
win 6-4.
super good win tonight by the team, and they earned this one tonight. They did a lot of good things. Still don't like the fact they gave up a 4 spot.
Good God.
But nonetheless, they really, really did have I thought one of their best outings in quite some time, and they really poured it on Montreal. A playoff team as they sat tonight. And I think when you look at Montreal, you're wondering yourselves, how the hell are they in the playoffs? But they did not play a good game tonight. Their goaltender was awful. And the Flyers got out of here with a big W.
Mishkov at the end there.
Oh, my God.
Multiple opportunities to try to get that elusive hat trick. And rings the post.
It's like the post crossbar with an empty net with about 3 seconds left. There was nobody in front of him, no goalie. He had 2. That would have been 3. That would have filled the ice with the hats of who's left here in the building. And that would have still been a cleanup right now. We would not be talking to you if Matvei Mishkov just tapped in an empty netter. An empty netter that Russ could have put in.
That's true. Well,
Russ, yes, you could have put that in the net, Russ.
Maybe.
I don't know why he tried to pick the top corner. See him, Mike?
Doing it in
He
style.
tried to pick the top corner in style.
You know what? Maybe he said, you know what? Unlike his fellow Russian Alex Ovechkin, maybe Matvei Mishkov's like, if I'm going to break this goal record in many years, it will not be with empty netters.
Great crowd up here again tonight, Thursday night. It was just packed up here.
Loaded
a lot of people.
crowd up here.
Yeah,
great stuff.
Big time crowd. Yeah, just jammed, and they're all trying to file out of the elevators right now. That's going to take a while.
You know, it's interesting too because I think there was kind of a question about just given the fact that the Flyers had lost 6 straight, 10 of their last 11. There was probably a little bit of a question of like, all right, like are the fans going to show up to see this team down the stretch? And while the entirety of the seats were not full tonight, it certainly wasn't a sellout. It was a very good crowd, and we tend to assess the excitement around the team based on this upper level, this walkable level up on the balcony.
Yes.
Because this is where you get a lot of people who buy their tickets kind of last minute. They're not the most expensive seats. Well, the seats themselves are expensive, but the standing room only tickets aren't the most expensive in the arena. And so there was excitement. The Flyers returning home, it drew a crowd. And, boy, Brad Shaw had these guys ready to play. The Ayrson of it all, 4 goals allowed, is stinky, stinky poo-poo. But on the whole, the team was buzzing. And, listen, maybe it's just a one-night. Torts is gone, quasi-new coach bump. But I don't know, Bundy. This team, they break the 0-for-34 drought on the power play.
Yep.
Sean Couturier looked like a new man out there tonight. I don't know. Multi-goal game for Sean Couturier, by the way.
Coots had
a dark horse, maybe a little late sulky push here, Bundy. No.
Coots had a great game tonight. He really did, and you know what? It was good to see that him and Mishkov and Konechny really found some chemistry. What an unselfish play by Konechny at the end to try to feed Mishkov for the 3rd goal, and Konechny easily could have buried that too, just tapping it in the net. But really good to see some of the stuff we saw tonight, and there's a lot of good that came out of this game tonight, especially the fact that Montreal is a playoff team and they're battling for their lives, and they couldn't come in here tonight and get a win. So that was a pretty good telling sign.
I always like to see how some of your players are going to perform when the chips are down and the games matter a little bit more. And obviously, this game doesn't matter. The rest of the stretch of games really don't matter. They do if you're a tank person, if you're somebody who wants to see them get as low as possible. But Mishkov having the game that he did, to me, is a really encouraging sign. Because you always have that thought of like, all right, guys are kind of looking to the offseason. Whether or not you allow it to kind of get in your mind, the season is effectively over. And he came out and he had a really good game. That to me is an encouraging thing. And this wasn't a case where you're going out and you're getting goals against a garbage team. It's not like they're inflated because of the empty net. This was a good performance against, as you mentioned. How are they a playoff-bound team? We don't know, but they are a playoff-bound team in Montreal. I take that as a big positive tonight.
Yeah, I do too. It was a good win. And what I liked tonight is my key to game on 97.5, the radio before the game tonight was number 1 key, relax and play. And the Flyers did that tonight. They just went out and relaxed. They played. They did the things they're capable of doing. They did a great job checking, clogging up the middle of the ice, which is this team has to do. I can only keep talking about the middle of the ice. People hear me say it every game. It gets redundant, but that's the facts of life. When they check between the hash marks up and down the ice, they are a difficult team to play against. When they don't, and they play loosey-goosey and they try to trade chances with the other team, they're going to get blown out, as you saw against Chicago and Toronto. Now, Chicago was one of those games. I just think it was a rough night for the team. But Toronto, they got outworked and they got out-hustled, and you never want to see that happen. So tonight they revamped. They came back. They played like I said they needed to play relaxed and calm and just to go out and have fun, and they did that tonight. And as a result, they were rewarded with a good victory.
We're going to talk about Cam York here in a second, but, we've made this a habit, and it's worth noting Nashville is currently winning at the end of 2. Buffalo won against Pittsburgh. Seattle plays Edmonton tonight. That'll probably be a loss, but if you are one of the tank happy people, we've been doing this, so we're going to keep it going, for better or worse. Again, whether you like it or you don't, it's realistic. The Flyers right now, 4th best odds of getting that number 1 overall pick, and we're going to spin it one time because that's what we've been doing here late. Oh, number 1 overall pick with the first spin.
Really? We had it once last week when they were like in 7th.
We did. So this is good. Remember, the key here, friends, is those top 2 spots are what the lottery determines. I was explaining this to somebody yesterday. They were like, "Wait, what do you mean it's only the 2?" Because in the NBA, it's the top 3 picks are the lottery, but in hockey, it's only the top 2. But hey, if the Flyers were to finish with the 3rd worst record in the league, the worst you could finish is 5th in the draft lottery. Not so bad. Not so bad. It will be interesting, Bundy. I mean, we're getting a little bit closer. We're starting to see some mock drafts that Hagen's fell to number 6 in Craig Button's most recent mock draft. We're still a ways away, and we're going to continue to analyze the team. But as the season kind of wraps up, we'll probably start to pivot a little bit towards what their draft strategy might be. But there are people who are excited. But I'll tell you what, for a fan base that has been mired in mediocrity, has been watching a listless team, and one that had largely seemingly checked out on the head coach, it is nice to see them go out and put a performance together like this tonight. It's good to have that mixed in.
Yeah,
in the midst of a couple of pretty long. It's been
a rough month. There's no doubt about it. And to see the Flyers play the Canada game today, it was encouraging because they came together as a group, and it's been probably a tough day on them too. It's a lot of emotion that goes through a coaching firing and the change that's made. We're still going to try to get you the Cam York information if we can.
Yeah, we're kind of hanging on. Coots right now is over on TV doing the postgame. Once we have, we're not going to hang out here for like 15 or 20 minutes waiting for Bradshaw's explanation, but we were told by Flyers PR during the first intermission that it would be addressed. So Cam York doesn't play tonight. He did suit up. Stick was not in hand on the bench. He did not take the ice. Was it a disciplinary thing? Was it a healthy scratch? But they needed to suit up a 6th defenseman. But not sure. It is supposed to be addressed. Let me see. There was something that I wanted to get to that I saw over in the comments, and now it is gone. Andrew Fawcett notes, they skated like a huge weight was lifted off their shoulders.
Yeah.
You've played for coaches that are maybe a little bit tough to play for.
Yeah.
When they get relieved of their duties.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to deal with that guy anymore. I've had them. I've had coaches I liked. I had coaches I didn't like. I mean, it's the way it goes. But, you have to respect your coaches. That's one thing you have to do no matter what. Just respect the coaches. And even if you don't like the way it's going, they're the bench boss, and you have to buy into that.
Did you ever have a coach that you didn't like playing for? You were, essentially happy to see get relieved of their duties. And then afterwards, like maybe it's a few months, maybe it's a year later, 2 years later, longer, you look back and you go, yeah, I didn't like that guy, but...
Yeah, Ken Hitchcock.
Okay.
Well, yeah, no one liked Hitch.
Yeah.
No one did. I mean, but I think at the same time, there was an understanding that he was a good coach. Now, I look at him now, and I didn't like him as a coach, but I don't mind him as a person now when I look back at it. Like, you can separate the two. But no, he was a pain in the ass to play for. He was always up your rear end. He was always trying to get more out of you. And some nights there's nothing more to get. That's the problem with a coach that's so demanding, is when you're doing your best and you've given everything you got, and there's sometimes some players don't have anything more to give. Mm-hmm. And that's the push that they're always keep going on. That's when you can wear down a locker room as a head coach.
I was going to say, is that where the fatigue really sets in, where it's not just the physical fatigue of being expected to kind of have the pedal to the metal, but it's also the mental fatigue?
Yeah, I mean, imagine coming after every single game and that coach wants to talk to you about something. You can't break down every single game for a defenseman. Yeah. You guys have to have an understanding. Have a good night, guys. Drive safe. an understanding of what you are as a player and who you are. But I mean, that's part of the fatigue, and that's what having an understanding is. There's certain coaches that push harder than others. There's certain coaches that let things breathe a little bit more, let the players figure it out, let them understand what's going on, and then we'll make the tweaks. And then there's coaches that just, you make one bad puck play, and they got you in the office the next day talking about that puck play, and it's more than just you making a mistake. You weren't playing, you're playing not right, and so guys can get in their own heads, but you can have a coach get in your head too.
Does the flip side ever happen where you go to play for a coach that isn't as demanding, and there's almost part of you that at least a little bit misses that extra fire, that extra pressure?
There's guys, but then you settled into that with a role where you appreciate the coach. It's a little bit easier. Okay. Roger Nielsen was a great players coach. He loved his players. Players loved playing for Roger. Craig Ramsey, same way. Now, now management would tell you that they weren't hard enough on the players, and that's why Craig Ramsey was relieved of his duties and Bill Barber came in. So I don't agree with that. I think the team would have been fine no matter what. But at the time Craig Ramsey got fired, it was early in the season, like 25 games in, and they wanted to make a change.
It has been a very interesting day here. For those who missed it, we did an emergency episode of Snow the Goalie Thursday morning when the news first broke that John Tortorella was relieved of his duties. And Bundy, we're not going to relitigate the entire episode here, but it seems like this morning we talked about the fact that like the post-game comments the other night were probably a big part of it. Anthony joined us from the road going down to cover opening day, said that his impression was that maybe the players, after hearing those comments, might have gone to management and said, like this is a bridge too far. We've now put up with enough. The post-game comments the other night were a little bit too much. Danny met with the media at 5 o'clock tonight, and he said that the comments the other night were one of the things. He did acknowledge that those comments were part of the reason for relieving Torts of his duties, but that wasn't the only reason. Said that he wouldn't get into specifics about like incidents, said that it has been building up over time. He was asked about last year if there were any things down the stretch that might have contributed. We can probably connect some dots that the Couturier benching was something that's been in the back of their mind.
That was the leadoff hitter.
I think so too, yeah.
That was the leadoff, yeah.
So, you kind of put that. I think that there have been times, look at remember last year he said something about Felix Sandstrom, like he kind of threw the one loss on Felix Sandstrom, like it was essentially like, well, the guy's in goal, like what did you expect? It was something like that. And then he kind of walked it back like a day or two later. You almost got the feeling that somebody said, dude, like, this guy's like the third or fourth goalie. Like, it's not totally crap on the guy. Like, it's not his fault. When you put all those things together, they ultimately decided it was time to go. The thing that I thought was interesting, and I'd love to get your thought, is, Danny said that while the comments the other night weren't the only reason, he did acknowledge that the decision to make this move came together very quickly in the last few days. Said that, it's been building up over some time. I think he said during the press conference, maybe the last few weeks, but definitely said that it really built in the last few days.
And that's what he said in this press
conference?
Yeah,
he said the last few days is really where it became a reality.
Yeah, and another word for that is his time was up.
Yeah.
That's all it meant. Time was up. He got him as far as he could go, as far as he possibly could, and that's exactly what he was talking about.
The thing that's crazy about it is just, and we talked about this, I think during pregame, but you look back on it, and if we had known what we know now, and we went back and talked to ourselves from like a week ago and said Torts is going to get fired, we'd been like, no, because so much of the conjecture, I talked to Bill Meltzer about this pregame, so many of the things around the team for the last like 12 months, 18 months has been either Torts is going to get an extension, Torts is going to coach out the contract, didn't really feel like an actual thing, that maybe he would make the move up into an advisory role at the end of this year and not be
right
a lame
off
dunk.
The board. Yeah.
Like, everyone. I mean, this isn't even something where it's like, one or two people said. The vast consensus was this guy is going to remain with the organization. So whatever the hell happened in recent times or last few days or whatever, it had to have been something that, like, not only does he get relieved of the duties as a coach, but, like, he's gone from the organization. To me, that's great. Yeah. Like, that's a pretty wild change.
Coming from the speculation that, he was going to go upstairs, there was some talk of that, to all of a sudden him being completely relieved of his duties from the entire organization. Probably said a lot about, they probably had a conversation about, like, do we take him off the bench and move him upstairs? Is that a worthy move? Is that something that we can do? I think together they came together and said, no, I think the best road at this point is to just let him go.
And Danny did say to the media that he said that the conversation's always been about Torts as a coach, and that Torts is best served as a coach.
See you, everybody. Have
See
a
you
good
guys.
night.
Have a good night. But, it is interesting. Despite the fact that we'd heard the idea, Danny said that the idea all along has been Torts as a coach. Torts coaches, that is what he does. And Danny also said today he's not going to speak for Torts. Up until a few days ago, the belief was that Tortorella's last coaching job would be here, just from a personal pride and knowing what he's done over the course of his career. Now that he's been let go, do you think that he goes for one last go around to kind of go out on his own terms? Because this was certainly not going out.
He's got to find somebody that's going to want him. So he's got to have a GM that's going to say, yeah, we want John Tortorella as our coach. Yeah. Whether that's the right thing for their future moving forward, they'll have to figure that out. And they'll figure it out that he's got an expiration date between 2 and 3 years.
In theory, if he had planned on hanging up the proverbial coaching whatever at the end of this year or next year, do you think, just from what we know about the guy, that this might have lit a fire under him to try for one more? Or do you think he goes out? It feels weird for him to kind of go out in the midst of a losing streak and almost getting himself fired in a sense.
Nobody
loves
loves the way their NHL career ends unless you win the Stanley Cup winning goal and you're 40 years old and you have to retire. Otherwise, nobody loves the way that their retirement is delivered to them, especially in professional sports. It sucks.
Yeah.
Believe me, I was having a great old time, and then someone told me, no, that's it. You're done. And then all of a sudden, you try to figure out the rest of your life.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. I don't want to wait around.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to wait for Bradshaw. But listen, Bradshaw's first win as the head coach, and what did you say, intern? It was 18 years since the last time he...
18 years.
18 years. Good for Bradshaw.
Yeah, good for him. Got a nice win. Got a really good start to his career, and
got a lot out of those guys tonight.
Appreciate you guys being with us tonight. It's been a long day. We had a 30-minute emergency awesome this morning for the Tortorella firing, and then we've had a busy night. So if you can pick up the Cam York stuff, we'll try to tweet it out if we see it.
Yep.
Yeah, I searched Cam York in Twitter, and I'm just refreshing, and nothing's come up yet.
There's nothing yet, but we'll have it covered. Saturday we'll be back here with the Press Row Show. Who do they play Saturday?
They play Buffalo.
The Sabres. and then
Nashville.
There are two games against Buffalo remaining. So those are what I call the 4-point games, right?
Swing games, yeah.
Yeah, regulation win for one versus the other is a full 4-point swing. So that's and then Nashville is when?
Monday.
Okay. So if you're a team tank, the next couple of games are for you.
Happy birthday, Snow the goalie.
Oh, that's right. 7-year anniversary of the show.
Yep. So
and on the
good job by you and Anthony starting this thing. Thanks for letting me come on and
it's been even better since you got here.
Freewheeling it with you guys. Appreciate it.
And you know what? There's no better way to end it than with this, my friends. We may be the only Flyers podcast, but ultimately, what makes us unique is that we are truly
That silly podcast.
And on that, it's time for us to end. Thank you so very much for watching, maybe even listening to the Press Row Show. Do us a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And if you can, subscribe in the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Until Saturday, this has been the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show. We will talk to each and every one of you Saturday here on the Press Row Show.